Welcome to Lovebabz, Lovetalk. I'm talking today. Enroue Halfkenny is on his way up, and we're going to be talking about all things spiritual in the Orisha community. Happy birthday to Miko Jackson, my soror. Today's her birthday. Yesterday was Verdine White's birthday from Earth, Wind, and Fire. So I think in my next hour I'll be playing some Earth, Wind, and Fire. Hey, Enroue. Hi. I thought I'd get started. If you want to turn the air conditioner off, you can. Just hit the How are you?
I'm good. So sorry.
Why are you late? You're not late. You're fine. You're just right on time.
At this point on time.
You're good. You're all right. Bring the mic in front of you and get some headsets and let's talk about what's going on.
Do all the things.
Do all the things.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You sure?
Well, you know, running.
Yeah. Ain't we all?
Yes. But I'm good.
No, it's all right.
In the midst of the running, yeah, I'm good.
That's what we all do. We all running. You know. I'm ready to slow it down now. Can you hear? Is that too loud?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. Getting all oriented here.
I know. It's radio. And it's like live radio, which is this weird kind of thing. Live radio. But like live radio you can watch because people are watching.
Right, I know.
Hey Irving Pinsky, I see you in the chat room. Hey. So how are you? What's new? What's going on? What do we want to unpack today?
I thought about that.
I think we have to box this series up and sell it.
So I was listening to this podcast, and it was actually from a meditation teacher. But what was interesting is he was talking about the suffering. What's he saying? Of unworthiness. And he linked it in a way I hadn't. He looked at it in terms of like, so what are the beliefs that we have, or what are the beliefs that we're taught, and what do then our spiritual traditions that we're seeking relief, right, and connection to reality and the divine and each other and all the good stuff, really waking up, what do those teach us? Right? What are the kind of beliefs underneath that are connected to worth or unworth or value?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing he connected with, you know, kind of Western culture, United States, is a predominant narrative is from the Bible, right? So you have Genesis, and so you have original sin, right, being kicked out of the garden. And so there's a fundamental kind of beginning of rejection of you did something wrong, and now you need to do all these things to really make up for that.
Yeah. And I don't even know if you ever really do all these things.
Right.
Like I don't even know if there's such a thing as makeup.
Right. So that as a what was interesting is like, so there's a fundamental belief that's driving people. Right? So here's this original mistake or error, or like, but there's consequences, right? And then the birth and pain, right? And then like, oh, is there really a makeup? Or, you know, then depending on where the split is, either between Judaism or Christianity, kind of what's done about that, what needs to be repaired, because something is off. And it's actually the off is not just kind of with us, but the off is you've done something wrong, right? Like you ate the apple, wrong,
or whatever the fruit is,
or whatever the fruit is, right? You transgressed against the sacred relationship that we were in. And so I was thinking about, so one difference in the Orisha tradition is that there isn't that kind of original kind of mistake that kind of we made to disconnect ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so just being curious around like what are the impacts, and so what are the ways that we can learn that the kind of other ways are possible to think in fundamental ways about literally our existence and where the support is for that. And so like in this tradition, I mean there are a couple of things. One is this notion of Ori, which I talked about another episode, another meeting we had together, where before we're born, we actually select our destinies.
Yes,
Right?
I know the story. Yes.
Right? And so not that it then is perfect, and not that it just magically happens, right? There's work and there's effort. Like we're at the crossroads. We have to choose. We're going left. We're going to right. We're going to go right. What are we going to listen to? How do we kind of cultivate a good way to live? But that choice is actually an original choice, right? So like we're making this choice around like our lives and our destinies. We're coming from heaven to earth. So even with that, there's such a fundamental piece around like I'm choosing to come here, versus this like kind of exile from heaven, or this exile from these sacred places. So that was one thing, just to like this curiosity. And then in life, it's this piece around like change is just the way things are.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of chaos is the way things are, and that can be seen as creation and destruction, or just like as you see something living and then it dies, and then something else is kind of eating or feeding, taking the nutrients from it, and then it's growing, right? So this cycling of that, but to then create the piece that we need to move from point A to point B, or to W, or to 7, or to wherever our paths are going, we have to make effort, and we need to make choices and sacrifices to do that. And some of that are I'm going to do this and not that, right, as a sacrifice, or it's I'm gonna work on this specific relationship with this person, or with this place, or with this force. I'm gonna settle here in New Haven, right, and not be here or there, right? But that's about a relationship also.
Yes.
And sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's unconscious, but there's still something that happens. And so that's this interesting kind of factor that gets put in. And the reality of one thing I was thinking of is this practice, and many kind of mystic practices are about an experience with the divine.
Mm-hmm.
And so experiencing the divine in a physical manifestation, right? So here's this sacred river, here's this sacred mountain, here's this sacred place that I can feel and touch and be with in its presence, and learn from that, even as it is in relationship with the kind of real as well. So there's an inclusion of the divine kind of in the real also, not as a kind of behind the scenes, not as a way off kind of over there. So I've just been kind of musing around these not just the differences, but really some of these deeper implications around really different ways of thinking, even about our existence outside of a certain kind of paradigm of Western thought, of Western Judeo-Christian Abrahamic thought. As spiritual development, as kind of what are these original stories telling us about ourselves, and what does that impact literally on our lives?
Mm-hmm.
And so depending on the choices of our beliefs and what resonates and what we move towards and cultivate, that has an impact on how we live as well.
I think you're right. I like the mystery, and I like the mysticism of things, and I like the deep dive for the spiritual work. I do. I think I don't like to take it at face value. I mean, I grew up taking it at face value. You go to church, you sing, you do the things, you hear the minister, you go. And then not beyond that. But, as I've gotten older and have studied, I like the deep dive of things. I love the exploration of the mystery of who are we and what are we, and bigger than the stories of the sacred stories that we like. What else is there beyond that? Not so much that I refute it, but that in addition to, because there's so much larger implication for the story. The Adam and Eve story is a big story.
It's a big one.
It's a big story, and we what we do is we chop it down to, well, she led him astray.
Right. It's her fault.
It's her fault. And I think women still, from that story, carry the weight of unworthiness forever. Like, that's just always, and I think men carry that with them as well, that women are somehow unworthy.
Well, and I mean,
in the spirit,
think about the, when you're adding like patriarchy in this culture, like can't fundamentally be trusted.
Yes.
Right. There's that.
Even
kind
if you're
of in
trusting, there's still this
right.
little. Is this too loud? You need me to adjust something?
No, I got it.
Okay. There still needs to be.
Fine tuning the volume
There
in my
still
ears.
seems to be that thing.
Yeah. But also, even what you said, like it's actually not all men and all women. It's actually if we just say yes to that, like there's a start of kind of where some of these, like that's a seed of where something is planted. And so if we don't want that, like that's the weeding that we have to do, and then what else are we going to plant? What else are we going to cultivate?
Yeah.
Or it may not be the weeding. We just start cultivating something else. Say like, I'm not going to do that. That's not nourishing me. I'm going to turn over this way. I don't necessarily have to like uproot. It's like, what is the kind of life affirming piece as well, which has as much, and I think spiritually speaking, I think has more transformative capacity and moving towards something, right? I'm going to move towards this yearning that I have, as opposed to I'm going to undo what I'm perceiving as like the negative or the harm or this bad story. And even in that, it's like, okay, so if I spend all this energy undoing that, I'm still not building the thing. I'm still not actually connected to the yearning that I'm actually having.
Yeah.
And there's a lot, and there is a lot to undo in that way, right? So there's, whether it's this is the way I'm like repeating this pattern of not like thinking that I have to do X, Y, or Z to be of value. I have to be a certain thing to feel like, I'm doing the right thing, right? I say, okay, well, I can notice when that comes up. And then I can say, all right, well, how do I want to be differently? And what is going to help me to be differently in that? And I find that, again, cause it's such a, it's cliche to say it's a grounding force because it's about the earth, right? So it's earth, grounding force, and about nature. But it's the like, when I can pause and feel the presence and the reality literally of the earth and these sacred forces as connected to those things, that pulls me out of the story, whatever story I'm in, to like, and there's more. And maybe I can not have to even think I need to figure so much out. I can be with that more and let that in and let that move what needs to be moved, undo what needs to be undone, cleanse this, nourish that, and trust that.
I think I'm with you on that. Yeah. I like that. I also believe too that, the earth is a living, breathing thing, and we are connected to the circadian rhythms of it, right? Because we are learning that our rhythms help us sleep, and they move us, and they help us balance out ourselves. And so there's some real facts and science around how we are on this planet and how we are all connected, and how each of us carry stardust and matter in us. Right. And we're all energy, and I think that's a bigger story where the creation stories can fit inside of. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think we have room to sort of expand on all the stories because I think they're all pieces of the larger puzzle. Right.
Yeah. And so part of the reason I bring this up is, you've often kind of had this question, or people coming to you with questions, right? And some of them kind of coming out of the church, or coming out of a dominant kind of perspective through Christianity, and like, well, something is missing, and what is there in the vastness and the varieties of African peoples, what is there that has been lost? What is there that has been overtly and covertly destroyed, packed away, dressed up in other ways, diminished? And I think that these are the ways of where are the cracks in the story, or what's the different story, or how can I see this in a different way? How can I be with this in a different way? I think is a good place to start, and it requires, though, the kind of honesty, not to someone else, but like inner. Right? It's like, oh, let me really look at why am I doing this? Why am I thinking this way? And is it serving me? And do I have this sense of that it's okay to be connected to these things? And part of the challenge is, like, when we've internalized certain beliefs, we don't necessarily know that those are beliefs. It's like the air. We're not aware that we're like looking at and through air all the time. And so it's really challenging unless it gets like cloudy, and then we're like, oh, there's air and moving, and the light shines through, and we see all the dust particles floating. We're like, wow, air is really full, actually. There's a lot of, and like you said, the exchanges, right? We're exchanging breath,
yes,
with everything all the time.
All the time.
And imagine if we cared for that exchange, both what we're taking in and cared for that, as well as what we're putting out, really cared for that. And for me, it's easier to see those things because human beings have constructed so much. Like we sometimes, I know myself, I have to like work or be really conscious of like, oh, right, I'm actually still in nature. I'm actually like still on the planet.
Yeah.
Because we've got so much constructed, our environments are so constructed. It's like, there's no nature here. Well, actually, the first thing is we are nature, right? So we actually, if we're saying we're something, then we're here. And then this other piece that we're always actually still connected. Yeah. Whether we're literally on the earth or, outer space, that still counts as nature, right? We're existing, we're in it.
We are.
But it's so easy to get lost in the kind of human creation and managing of things and construction of things. Yeah. And it's the interconnectedness that's easier for me to see, sitting by a river. One example is, it's easy to see a river as this like bound thing, like, oh, here are the shores, and then it kind of starts somewhere over there, and it kind of it runs to the ocean. Okay, that's the river. But I came across a writings, and it was like actually a river actually extends like at least 10 feet through the earth, through the soil on either side of it, right? So there's water moving, beneath the soil that we don't perceive, and that is also the river. And at what point does it really become the river? We can say, well, it's the beginning. Well, if we go to the beginning, it doesn't really seem like the river. Is it still? Or like at what point? And so in these ways, nature itself helps me to kind of expand that thinking of what interconnected is. Like the river actually doesn't exist without the land, without these trees, without these stones. And so its very identity is interconnected, which is the same as we are as human beings.
That's a good point. I like that point.
It's hard to see that when we've got all these things constructed by us, around us.
Yes, I think that's a good point. Yeah. I think that's a good point, that we are nature and we're interconnected, and I'm a fan of shared destiny. Like, I mean, there's no other planet we're going to. Right. There's no other, as far as we know. Yeah. I mean, we have to be here and make the best of this. And how do we do that? I do think, though, Enroue, that for many Black people, this kind of exploration is challenging because our history in this country and in the world is challenging. And so many of us in this country cannot track our roots to one place, whereas other people can. We often cannot. And so that feels foreign, although we feel the pull of wanting to know what that is over and over again. You see people taking the DNA test, wanting to know, going back to any part of Africa to feel connected. But I think it's challenging when you've grown up with a Christian or a Judeo story that's so ingrained generation after generation that you feel like you're betraying that faith when you go outside to explore what else or what's more. And this is what I see people struggle with. They feel the pull of a larger something, but they don't want to explore it because it runs contrary to, or maybe they think it runs contrary to the story that they've been given all of their lives.
I think in a real way it does run contrary. I mean, I think that there are people who are there's a blending and a merging of aspects of that. You know, they're not completely divorced from each other because we're human beings and we're all trying to find our way. But you know, Christianity, you know, really speaks of like, this is the one, this is the way. And I mean, there are
lots of
churches and denominations that are in that are saying, well, maybe not, let's be open. But there's a, you know, that is the kind of evangelical, that is kind of mission driven. This is the way. We're going to pull you in to make you a human being. Right? I mean, and that was literally, you know, the Pope said, oh, you're going to this other place? Okay, well, those are not people there, right? Because they're not Christian, they're not Catholic, they're not in our fold, so they're not human beings. So kind of what you do with them, that's on you. And maybe we can pull some of them in, and then by doing that, they kind of become people. We also kind of get their stuff because they're kind of under our, right there in our church, they're kind of under ours. So there is very much a very, this is the framework. We're going to pull you into this one way, and this is the right way. And there are very real consequences of not being that one way, which is what happened here. There were many ways that we came to this particular part of the earth as enslaved peoples. We came with all different ways, and it was, the framework was, that is not happening. You have to, if you're going to be here, you have to be in this framework, and we're actually going to keep you ignorant of even the framework we're talking about. And so like the first ways that people were reading, really learning how to read, was through the Bible.
Yes.
And then a kind of a translation. How do I use, this is my only allowed access to the divine.
And let me give you the pieces that we want you to have, because knowledge is powerful.
Right.
And we're not going to give you the whole thing. We're going to give you what we want you to have.
Of what we have.
Yes, of what we have.
Of what we have and what we think is right.
Yes.
Not around what you may have and what you may think is right. And so, you know, while I think it's very important, this piece around like this feeling of betrayal, like we've been raised a certain way, and like to think outside of that, like this feeling of a betrayal, and like even like the betrayal of my people, right, where I've come from, and that's within that framework. If we expand that framework, so if we expand the framework to say like, okay, so let's say yes, you want to honor where you come from. Right? Why does where you come from stop, you know, 1492? Why is where you come from not before that? And part of the reason it's not before this, because the framework we've been raised in is about what comes before is actually about not being a person. And so we are taught that, and not that we have to, you know, the going back is not the like I have to be the same way. But if we're really gonna honor our people, then then can we be expansive in a way that is actually the way that we have always been expansive? And that's also the challenge. And I think there is a piece of the fear of betrayal, but I think there's more of the fear of that unknown, and the fear of like, I don't have that same kind of framework. You know, you can walk around and it is very clear and very obvious that, you know, this is a predominantly Christian land, or you know, what people are doing here. Like, you see that. There are institutions, you can go to divinity school and this thing, right? There's all kinds of things
you
saying,
throw a rock,
yes,
there's a church everywhere.
Right, this is the movement of the institutions of this society. But that's not the only story. And so if you're saying like, well, but this is what there is, and this is what they say, and this is what I have, then you think that there's only a certain amount. But that's a part of the like, oh, there is more. Oh, really? Yeah, where's that yearning taking me? Well, it's taking me a little bit over here. Well, what if you followed that? Not if you kind of jumped into an abyss of just not knowing, because that's terrifying. but what if you just, what's that over there? And how do I start to feel that that's okay? And but I have these other stories that tell me it's not. Okay, so what are you going to trust? And that is a place of challenging, because when we've learned one way, it's even hard to know where our voice is and what is, well, but I have this voice saying like, that's bad. Like, okay, that's bad. And I have this other thing saying like, oh, but this is something that is so connected and light and, you know, a homecoming in a very different way. And so then it becomes this choice. Okay, so how can you have courage to be with that feeling and explore what that possibility is at whatever pace you can? And that's fine. And it may, as you move there, this thing may crumble, or this thing may be say, like, okay, well, you can go there, but you got to come back, like bring that back in here, or some other version of that. And fine.
And I've seen people do that.
Yeah.
I've seen people do it. I've seen people be in the pulpit with kente cloth on. I've seen it, you know, trying to weave that a little bit.
Right. And it's looking at what you talk about, these deep dives. So where can that be? And I mean, for me, I'm a much more, you know, what is at the root of things? And you know, for me, I want more than like kind of my piece of the pie of what this culture is saying is the purpose of your life. There's more to that. And I know there's more to that. And some of it's the undoing, some of it's connection with other communities. Like, oh, right. Like love and personhood is actually greater than this. No, you know, yeah, you can kind of be here, be there, but like, we're still going to have systems of oppression. We're still not going to challenge police violence. We're still not going to challenge how housing and education is done. But we'll like kind of allow a few people in. And if you adopt our ways, right? If you say, I'm really on board to this 100% to the kind of founding fathers and U.S. experiment, just as it is and as it's happening, there's room. There's not a lot of room, but there's room in that. But for me, there's so much more outside of that model of what it means to be a person, of what it means to be in a relationship, of what it means to be fair and equitable and just and kind, and to care as much, again, for that, like what I'm taking in is what I'm putting out, right? There's no, like you said, like we're on the earth. There is no throwing something away. Yeah. There is no away. There's my over there, right? But, you know, what of our models and our beliefs mean that that's okay, that the ones over there, it's okay if they have our waste. Yeah. Right. And so then it's like, okay, I'm here and they're there. Oh, but what happens when all of a sudden I'm the there, right? And like, you know, poor communities of color have, you know, all these health problems because those are the dumping grounds for the industry that we have, because we are the there, we are the over there, we're the throwing it away. And so it's not just how do I then get on the other side. So I'm okay, now I'm back over here with the yay, I'm over here and the waste goes over there. But how do we make it so that there is no over there? And so that we're sustaining, we're caring for like what we take in and what we put out. And if what we're putting out is a mess and garbage, how do I change that? Right? So that I'm not doing that. And what does it mean to like address so that there's not that mess and garbage in me? What do I need to be connected? What do I need to take in to transform that so that there's less, right, thrown away? There's less that is harmful to someone else by me being where I want to be.
I like that. And that's real interconnectedness when you think about your footprint as it relates to other people's existence, right? That I think that's the real, I think that's the real quest. You know, the internal quest.
There's a verse of, I may have said this before, there's a verse of sacred poetry in Ifa, which talks about the earth itself. So the earth is considered an Orisha itself.
I rather like that thought.
So this verse says, so the verse is, Osa, the brightly shining one, Ifa, priest of the earth, performed Ifa divination for the earth. The earth was told to stop making sacrifices to become wealthy, and instead to make sacrifices to protect her from her enemies. And we are certainly alive, and we are praying that as long as we remain on the earth, that the earth is never destroyed. So that's part of the sacred literature in this tradition that is told to someone who's struggling, right? And it's to say like, so you're worried about, so there's two things. One is like the person seeking counsel. You're worried about, I want to get these things. I want to be wealthy. I want to da, da, da. It's like, so that's actually not what you need to worry about. You've got people and forces trying to undo your life. Right?
Real
that
talk.
is more important. Right?
Real talk.
Right. So there's that aspect of, right? The person is coming, but it's in the framework of the earth itself. So we can't be the people fighting against the earth.
Yes.
We need the earth, right? We're here. We're alive, right? So let's pray that that the earth is never destroyed. And how crazy is it that we are the people making it difficult for us to be on the earth? And so many other beings, but what are we doing?
Yeah.
And fundamentally, can we shift that relationship? Not as we own it, not as we govern it and we have power over it, but this is a precious, precious being that we're in relationship with. And can we allow ourselves to love it, right? Just as we're hopefully, right, we are loving ourselves, what we're taking in, what we're putting out. Can we have that with the earth itself? Can we have that with our ancestors? Can we have that with our loved ones? Can we have that with the people we pass on the street? Can we really have that with ourselves, which in this culture is very challenging, to really care for ourselves. What I've been learning for myself is how to care for myself in a caring way, not the, okay, I want these things to be better, let me push and drive and make the thing, I'm gonna be healthy and I'm gonna do things. No, well, that's actually not healthy. That's not helpful. Can I care for myself in a caring way?
we put the caring on steroids, and then we understand. Yeah. We don't realize that's not caring.
Gotta do more, faster. Oh, and you didn't do the walk. You didn't do the thing. But then we undercut the health that we're trying to do. Yeah, you're not doing the care good enough. Yeah, right? And then that critical piece. Can we know what we've been through?
But then it becomes another chore.
It's another chore.
Another weight that keeps you saying, I'm unworthy because I can't even do that.
Right. So we avoid it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Take it off the plate altogether.
Why would I do something that I'm training myself to feel more unworthy of? I'll just avoid that. I'll do this other thing, which is not really helpful, but it feels better because I'm not
I can
feeling
actually
unworthy,
do this,
and
right?
I can do it. Right.
I can do it.
Yes.
I'm not feeling unworthy. Yeah. So that's real. Yeah. I mean, that's a good cycle. I think that's the I think that thinking, there are people ahead of us in terms of marketing that understand that very concept, and I mean the diet industry. Oh yeah, that is probably the biggest, the biggest execution of that is telling you you're not worthy. Not worthy. And but if you take these but see, look, if you do this, oh, you can't do that. Well, that's why you're the way you are. Because you're not willing to be committed. Your mind, you're not.
in Boston on Newbury Street years ago, I don't think it's still there. There was so on Newbury Street is this commercial street, and there was literally in this one building there two businesses, one above the other. On the top floor, and you could see them both, big glass windows for both of them. Top floor or the middle floor was a bulk candy store, right? You go in, pull the lever, fill the bags, whatever you want per pound, all these glorious glittery things, right? Downstairs was a Weight Watchers.
Of course.
And right in front of this building, right? So you can go down the stairs to Weight Watchers or up the stairs to the candy store, was a very large scale. So you could stand on it and weigh yourself
with your bags of candy
facing either Weight Watchers or the candy store.
Yeah,
and then make your choice, right? So it's not like a right. You get what's going to drive you, right? Guilt is going to drive you either direction, actually. Right? The unworthiness is going to drive you in either direction. And that's good business for both of them.
It's good business, and it's not by accident.
No,
it's not by accident.
But it's not for people, right? It's good business.
Yeah.
It's not good health. Good people.
No, that is not good health, because it's telling you everything that you lack.
Yeah.
You lack.
You lack.
See, if you just
lack.
give us your money
Mm-hmm.
so we can help you with your lack, so you
Mm-hmm.
can lack even more.
Right.
Because these are going to be impossible challenges.
Yeah.
And then they'll dangle people who have gotten some success. And then you'll compare yourself to that because you're like, gosh, what do they have that I don't have? What are they doing that I'm not doing?
Right.
I'm running myself ragged and I cannot accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on this wheel, so I know it like I know the Bible.
Yeah. Yep. And
It's
so
its own Bible.
So compare that to sitting, on a mountain, looking at this landscape, on the beach, looking at the vastness of the ocean. And in that experience, with something in relationship to something so big, it has never been my experience that I feel lack in relationship to that.
Mm-hmm.
Never. In relationship to that vastness, I never feel lack, right?
Yes.
I might feel like I might feel not enough, but then when I connect it, that's like, I'm a part of this.
Yeah.
That's so much bigger than me, but like I am also a part of this, and actually I'm enough, right? Versus the like what human beings in particularly in this culture have created of the motivation and the who you are is based on that lack, and is based on actually getting you really close to the discomfort of it, so that you will buy this or buy that or avoid this or take these things, versus and that's like to stay within the story, right? To stay within that construct of, here's the lack, but like this is how we can deal with the lack, and if you take this or do that or da-da-da, as opposed to let us connect with something that is not involved in that story at all, and you still have a place, and you can still have a relationship with the complexity of who you are, the challenges, and it doesn't make those things go away, but it means that the resolution is not based on a lack.
Yeah.
The resolution is actually based on a relationship that you get to have because you are part of it. We are a part of it. Like, it's not the ocean. Yeah, it's kind of out there, but that's where the interconnectedness comes in. But that's where the relationship that's actually already there. And if we move towards that inner feeling, not just like, okay, I don't know, it's just water, I'll get in the water now and I'm supposed to feel better. Like, no, but it's how do we allow ourselves to touch that yearning?
Yeah. And you have to be able to do it. I think my former minister, Reverend Lillian Daniel, who is out in the Midwest, she wrote this wonderful book about people saying, they're not religious, but they're spiritual. And she was like, it's easy for people to go sit on the beach and watch the sun rise and feel all spiritual. She said it's not easy when you're trying to get the kids out the door and you're late for work and your clean shirt is on the floor. She's like, that's when you need to try to tap into your spiritualness and call in your faith in those moments. It's easy to do it when you're on the beach or on top of a mountain because it's vast and nothing is in your way, but the vastness of that. She's like, but tap your spirituality when you're up against it in the middle of a city trying to get where you got to go. And that's the point. I like that point very much.
And that is about whatever your practice is.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
To let you know that actually that vastness is always and everywhere.
Yes.
And the practices actually just help us to remember that and to access that. So in the midst of can I take a minute? Now it doesn't mean that the thing that you're doing has to stop.
Right. But sometimes it can't stop.
But until you have a practice, you need the pauses to do the practice, right? But it means that like, I'm in this and wow, there's all kinds of beliefs about like whatever I think should be happening, and they aren't listening to me the way I want them to listen to me, and I'm not who I think, and like there's all this kind of judgment story that really drives fear and anxiety and anger in these intimate relationships. I mean, not to say that there's not to minimize also the like I'm trying to get from point A to point B. Right. Like this is a thing I'm really trying to do today, and like these are the things that are in the way. So, but how we deal with those things that's it. That's the juice of it. We can deal with those things as like everything is against me, and I'm and I'm not good enough, or I have to push back and I have to fight, and I have to use this what I think of as power, and all of those tools come from how we are raised. in all the things, education, family, social, economic, spiritual, all of it's how we're raised and how we see and how we deal with the bumps in the road, how we deal with the obstacles. And so a practice can say, okay, I can deal with this in a different way, and I can deal with it based on what the need is. So sometimes there's an obstacle, and the most appropriate thing to do is to go through it. Fine, that as a choice. Sometimes it's to go to the left or to the right, or dig under it, or jump over it, or turn around. Like, but those become choices based on the skill of in general, of our kind of life practice to deal with that, whatever disruption that is, so that we can choose as opposed to being reactive. Like, oh, well, whenever I see a wall, I plow through it. No. Maybe, right? Maybe it's just a door that's closed. Right? And you can just open the door and then look, it's a doorway, and you haven't wrecked a thing, and you can't then close it behind you because something's chasing you. Like, so who knows, right?
But you have to slow down. You have to slow down, but you have to learn that, right? Do you think you have to learn that?
Yes. Well, because because it's not that we just have to learn to slow down, because it's not a pace thing. It's because when we have a good skill that's well used, those decisions happen fast.
Yes.
Right? Those just happen. Yes. So it's a matter of saying,
yes, that's a good point.
That's the choice point. Yeah. Is what am I cultivating? How am I cultivating a way to be? Can I do that so I actually don't have to think so much? I can trust that, right? I can trust the yearning over here, as opposed to like, well, that's telling me to do something that I've been told I shouldn't be doing, and I don't even know if I should or not, but I'm relying on what I've been told, so I'm just going to stay away from it. And like, we don't know if that's good or bad or whatever. We're reactive to it, right? Or they're like, here's the wall, I just got to go through it. Like, well, okay, maybe if you had some other tools or some other options with the same kind of speed, you would just turn and whatever you're running from, one or two, and maybe the thing is actually to the left or the right and not through the wall, but you don't know that. Your tendency is to run through the wall.
Yes.
There was someone who I worked with who their reactivity was about kicking buckets. Like, they would get angry and they was like, kick buckets and clear like literally, like they were like clear desks and like in our work together, it wasn't that bad things or difficult things didn't happen, but they were able to like, oh, I have some different tools. And like, wow, like when I kick buckets and when I like clear the table, that actually negatively impacts me and negatively impacts these relationships.
Yeah, because you got to go pick all that stuff up.
Or be accountable that you didn't.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Now people know, oh, so-and-so's coming. Clear the table.
Put your stuff away.
Right.
And then people get tired of that, then, like, listen.
Right. So those are
you can't be here doing that.
So can we choose? And this person was like, oh, like that came up, I was like, oh, no. At a certain point, I was like, I don't want that. I don't know what else to do. And so we work on that. We address that. And it means slowing down at first, pausing at first, say, well, what is actually going on? Is it me that's actually going on and not the circumstances? So let me be with that differently.
Yeah.
Because we actually can't just magically change all the circumstances.
No.
So how can we be?
But you can amass a tool chest that can help you.
Right. Either be with it differently, and even the being doesn't mean a passive just accepting, but I can be with it so then I can actually think strategically about how I want to address this thing.
Yeah.
Right. Which may be about, I'm going to change it, and now I actually have capacity and I can bring other people in and we can work to change this thing versus the reactivity, which is easy. So if we talk about social change, sometimes that reactivity can actually be easily dismissed because of the reactivity. Like, oh, this is a crazy person kicking buckets and just tearing stuff down. They're now a danger. We got to, right? That's the excuse.
And that's the label of us all the time.
Right. We're a danger all the way to the end.
Our skin is weaponized.
Skin is weaponized. Bodies are, all the way up to like the new language of like, well, we call someone a terrorist, and then all these other things kick into play. And so, not that the interventions or our reactivity is that, but how can we be skillful about what are we aiming for and what are we trying to move towards and what needs to be done to do that, and how do we actually garner the interconnectedness of like-minded people and beings to say like, this is actually what we need, this is actually where we're at, this is actually how we want to be, and that's different for everybody about what that is, because while we're interconnected, we also have this distinctiveness to ourselves. We're here different ways to do different things and to be different people while we're all interconnected and have a shared life and destiny as well.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Always a good conversation. Oh my gosh, he unpacked a lot today.
Yeah, I hope it wasn't too
nope
out there.
Nope.
That's
nope.
good.
Nope. Nope.
Good.
Nope. I like the deep dive, and I think people like the deep dive too, because I don't know where you would get these kinds of conversations, and I
like it.
You know, they're not. You know, we're not having these in bars, and although I am sometimes.
I know. Well, I don't go to bars, so that's why I don't have them in bars anyway.
Sometimes I do, or cigars or whatever. But I love the deep dive, and I love the mystery of things, and so these conversations are quite expansive for me. So I appreciate you coming and doing this.
Love it.
You know, so thank you.
I love it.
You'll be back.
Yes.
You'll be back.
Maybe sooner than later.
Yes, absolutely. All right, Harry, I'm about to play us out. We good?
Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Enjoy your weekend. I'll be back in the 10 o'clock hour.